What's up? What's up?
Here we are.
Here we are with our midweek Bad Dad podcast.
The midweek.
Absolutely. So a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if you remember, I think it was either my viral or maybe the Bachelor 101. We were kind of talking and we kind of hopped onto the podcast and we said, man, we're dropping some things. We're talking about some really good heat that y'all, like, even at that time we're Patreon.
Yeah.
And we're saying y'all guys can't hear this, but man, that's some good stuff. It was like we literally were talking for what, maybe like 20 minutes before we decided to hit
definitely.
record.
Because I remember like cutting the video and was like, good Lord, how long did we talk about
We were
this?
recording and talking. So let's just kind of jump in. We started talking about a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago now. We had 4 individuals, very tragic story. They ended up from South Carolina going down to Mexico, and basically the cartels took them, killed 2, let 2 go. The story that was presented, right, is that they were going down, when the girl was going down to get a BBL, down to past Brownsville, right, and going to part of Mexico to get that done. As a Hispanic who has family on the border, just a lot of parts of the story just were fishy. The part that they were going to Mexico is not known for plastic surgery. There's other places in Mexico that are known for plastic surgery. This part of Mexico is not known for plastic surgery. Mm-hmm. And again, being a married man, knowing women a little bit more because I am a married man, knowing something like a BBL is a very intimate thing. And it just sounded fishy that he had one person. Again, I'm not trying to slut shame or anything like that, but it just sounded fishy that something's very intimate.
Right.
This young lady was rolling around with 3 guys.
Yeah.
There's reports now then also coming from Mexico and TikToks from Mexico where individuals were saying, hey, man, like these people were breaking into pharmacies and robbing them at gunpoint and things like that. Then on top of that, and this is all the stuff that we were talking about during that, we just didn't, again, hit record and let everybody hear. Because again, these were just, at this point, it was very hot takes. Yeah. And then on top of that, just the way the cartel responded just did not sound right. Just sounded really, really fishy.
Yeah.
Then on top of that, again, if you're doing something like a BBL, right, which is your butt, like you don't drive from Mexico all the way back to South Carolina. Like that's a really painful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like
a lot of hours in the car.
A lot of hours in the car. Like you don't want to do that. So there's just so many little things that are becoming fishy. And I'm a person, maybe y'all will cancel me, but can't cancel me. Maybe I will never be heard of ever again. But I am not trusting a mainstream news media. I'm just not.
And you're not alone.
Like I get a lot of my news from TikTok. We've talked about this. I get my news from TikTok. I get a lot of my news from Twitter. Yeah. I get a lot of my stuff from kind of free independent sources because I just don't trust the media.
I'm right there with you.
So right as this started happening, the media started talking about like, oh, Mexico and there's talks about possibly invading. And then all of a sudden you're hearing all these different talks. Then around the same time, we didn't talk about it this day, but around the same time, they started talking about fentanyl being in like daily prescriptions and medications and things like that. Yeah. And so people in Mexico were saying like, wait a minute, we're taking, again, I got family in the border, right? And they go to Mexico all the time. They're like, yo, people are taking the medicine and not dying. Yeah. Like we are Mexicans and we're taking the medicine and we're not dying. And then some people started theorizing that the reason why all this stuff is happening, everybody's dying of fentanyl, mixed with antibiotics and things like that, this cartel story that's happening, and we're talking about the U.S. invading, Mexico to try to combat the cartels. They're saying they're going to organize the cartels into a terrorist group. The reason why all this is starting to happen was because Mexico decided to say, hey, BRICS seems a little bit more appealing than the U.S. You had the Mexican president get on a stage, and it was a very famous speech, and he said,
"Explain BRICS."
BRICS is it's an acronym. It stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and now South Africa. It used to be BRIC, then they added South Africa. BRICS, right? And it's an alliance. The big thing is China is trying to kind of unite countries and no longer have the U.S. dollar be the currency that the rest of the world operates, but they want the Chinese yuan to be the main form of currency for these countries, right? The good thing about us being Americans, right, is we can go anywhere around the world. Our currency is taken. They will change our currency in. They'll love our currency and they take in our currency.
Hey, is the yen Japan?
Yen is Japan, but this is the yuan.
Right. I was just curious because for whatever reason in my head I was thinking that it was
So historically, it's always been kind of, Russia and China. We've kind of been like, UK, Japan. My daughter's making noises. Does it sound like she's crying?
Sounds like she's happy.
Okay. Sounds like she's happy. Okay. Let me go check. I don't want to see.
Yeah. Hey, this is
like a real bad dad.
Full bad dad. Don't worry about it.
Can we leave off? Just picking back up, but just kind of recap, just kind of jump in. But they're trying to replace with the Chinese yuan.
Yes.
Replace the main form of currency. Before it was just only like Russia and China doing this kind of thing, and them kind of going back and forth.
And there's some going with the rubles as well.
And originally they were kind of going back and forth of which currency there was going to be, but eventually because of the war in Ukraine, they decided to say, "Hey, we're going to go with the Chinese yuan over that because no one wants to do with the rupee." But again, the benefit of being an American, right?
Mm-hmm.
The benefit of the U.S. dollars. The U.S. dollar is strong because the whole entire world is backing, like is willing to back it up. Right. So again, I'm not a political strategist or an economist or anything like that. This is just, again, dads talking amongst dads. Right. So the Mexican president said, "Hey, we're no longer going to do this anymore. We're no longer like, we're willing to be in alliance with the U.S., but we're no longer to be subservient to the U.S. We're going to be a free and independent Mexico."
Right.
So here you're having all this border drama. We've always had issues with the border.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the Mexican president comes out and says this. So people started theorizing that the reason why all of this kind of new news happening at the border is because the Mexican president saying, "Hey, we're going to do this." And then shortly after, a couple weeks after, the Mexican president said, "Hey, we're probably going to back away from the U.S. and we're going to join BRICS." And so you're starting to see all these different political powers that we have been historically been friends with. They're our allies. All of a sudden kind of take a step back and say, well, we're not 100% sure. El Salvador, my dad is from El Salvador, right? They own property in El Salvador. They literally, bro, there's this town called Surf City. It's known for their surfing. It's specific. They have some great waves and things like that. But Surf City, like the Chinese government gave them a ton of cash for free to build this whole entire like pleasure pier, kind of beachside, like little kind of a carnival type deal for them for free. Now, of course, we know that not everything in this world is there's nothing for free in this world. You know that there's something they're wanting, more than likely wanting to arrive through the Pacific coast from China, any type of whatever they're wanting to bring, importing things like that. You're seeing Japan the other day. Japan just came out and said, "Hey, you know what? We're allied with the United States, but we need some of this Russian oil."
Right.
And they're paying it above price than kind of getting it with the U.S. You're seeing that they came in and brought peace in the Middle East and brought unity in the Middle East. And a lot of this started, right? And this is where I'm for sure going to get canceled. If I wasn't canceled before, I'm going to get canceled now. A lot of this started right after the war in Ukraine.
Canceled!
I am officially canceled. And don't get me wrong, man. Like, I've met some sweet Ukrainian people. We had a young lady in our church, from Ukraine, and just see kind of the devastation stories that they share. And it's really, really sad. I know there's some help and relief that the people need. But at the same time, man, like it's coming at a cost to the American people. It's coming at a cost to us. It's coming at a cost, like politically, I think we've made some moves that have not been the smartest. And why is it again? I'm gonna take the Joe Rogan approach. Like, listen, I'm just an idiot. Like, what the heck do I know? Like, right? If you're getting all your political news and information from me and your political knowledge from me, okay, maybe you need to kind of back away, right? Like, I can't be your buy all, and it means we can't be that for you. But at the same time, like, you got to do some homework. Like, we got to do some homework, and we got to reevaluate on how we begin to move forward politically. Because, man, what's happening right now, dude? Like, at least in the geopolitical world, man, this is not looking good. I think we can overcome this BRICS issue, all right? I think we still the U.S., right? But, man, this has giant ramifications, not only for the world, but it also has ramifications for us. Like, you may be listening like, okay, who cares? Who cares what these other countries want to do? We're still going to do that. Like, like if they decide to quit using our money, if you thought inflation was bad, like now, trust me, it's going to be 10 times worse when you have so many other countries say, hey, we no longer want to use the U.S. dollar.
Do you think some of that's out of spite because they finally see the chink if you will, in the armor of the U.S.
Yeah, I think we have definitely looked a whole lot weaker, as we talked about in our podcast, our main podcast of the week, right? Like, good times, good, what is it? What do you say? Bad times create, strong men create good times create weak men.
Right.
Like we've definitely entered like a bad time. Like
Right.
we're in kind of one of these weak times. Like we're not as strong as we once were,
Right.
right? We have easily become divided. Honestly, we've become divided, man, because a lot of cultural issues and cultural wars, like we're no longer united front,
What's interesting too, something that I just thought about is, we talk a lot on the show too about history repeating itself in different ways, and I believe that can in some ways take on just a little bit of a different, I guess maybe in a different style, but still repeat it. You could almost go as far to say is that we're in a social Great Depression.
Yeah.
And
that's good
because of the way that it is so just, we've never seen the extent of some of the stuff that's going on in America right now.
Yeah.
And it's 98% based on social things.
Yeah.
It's not a monetary thing.
No.
And like a stock market thing to the degree as what it is socially.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there's some people, man, that are making some pretty controversial takes right now that, might as well, we're going in it, so might as well go in it.
Bring
right?
it. Give it to
me.
Like,
I heard a guy say that, and it just spoke volumes to me. It said that right now, one of the biggest things that people like to argue, again, kind of going social issues, right? We're kind of maybe in a social Great Depression, as you said. One of the things the guy was arguing is that right now, one of the biggest issues being race, right? Race is being this big issue. And he made this argument that I've not been able to shake. He said, in reality, the issue right now, it's not race, it's classism. Not racism, classism.
That's fair.
That the really, really rich want us to keep us divided by race, right? Want us to fight over that so we can ignore what they're doing.
Do you also think that has a lot to do, because I mean, dude, you're making a lot of sense here with, think about how much of a boom in the past, well, let's call it maybe 5 years of entrepreneurship being the thing.
Yeah.
And if you get a lot of these guys start entering that class, they got to figure out a way to keep that class separated.
Because think about it. This is the one argument that he made. He talked about it. He said Amazon, multi-billion-dollar company,
right,
started talking about Black Lives Matters, put a Black Lives Matter square and things like that.
Right.
Let's be real. Do you think Amazon really cares about Black lives? Multi-billion-dollar company.
Right.
Like Jeff Bezos could come drop in the hood. Like, I'm from the hood.
Yeah.
Right? Got a lot of friends. Right? Don't look like me.
Right.
Some darker, some lighter. Jeff Bezos could come into the hood and drop money like that.
Right.
Fix a lot of issues. Create a lot of good programs. Create a lot of help. What is Jeff Bezos doing instead?
He's on his yacht, bro.
He's building a gigantic yacht that they got to tear down bridges, historic bridges, so he can get his yacht out.
Yeah, bro.
Right? But instead, he would rather have us fight and us ignore his money.
Right.
He'd rather us have the common American person fight and argue whether they should have that on their website or not, instead of us looking at. And again, listen, part of it is that we live in capitalism. I do believe capitalism is the greatest form of running the economy. I'm all for it. I'm for capitalism, not for socialism, right? I'm deeply a capitalist. But I do think there needs to be some capitalism, some check, right? And I think we should come in as a government. But the problem is, man, like, there's so much money going in, and a lot of people that are like, uberly rich are making all the decisions for the person down here at the bottom who, man, we're struggling here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's why I respect, this is probably, again, this might get me canceled, but, like him or hate him, that's why you got to respect, like, Elon, right? Like, he don't need to be buying Twitter.
He didn't have to buy Twitter.
He didn't have to buy Twitter, but what he saw was, I got influence. I got to do something a little bit more than just, like, being a yes man.
Yep.
And he's stirring the pot.
Yep.
Like, not saying everything he does is right or everything he says is right, but good Lord, at least respect the guy that he's doing stuff, in the same, again, this is another probably real hot take, but whether you like it or not, Trump didn't have to be president. He didn't have to be. And I've got a couple buddies that they're Democrats and they're not far leftists. They're not getting all in the crazy. I would say, speaking for myself, like I'm would call myself more of a conservative, but I'm not going far right because especially I think Joe Rogan and a lot of people. For Joe Rogan specifically, we both listen to him. I know, and he's pretty good. He is liberal, but I mean, there's a lot of like blended things there, and I think that that's become the new thing. Like we talked about on the main pod, is really knowing yourself, knowing what you believe in, right? And so anyway, in saying that, the policy for foreign policy, I asked my buddy. I said, I get the things and your issues. I understand it, but like foreign policy. Can you seriously tell me that was, he said, the best foreign policy I've ever seen?
Yeah. I've met more centralist leaning left that say, man, times were better.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Like I've met more people that are centrally to the left. I think I think,
and don't get it sideways. We're not saying
absolutely.
that whether that was or was not the right person to be in office.
But I think the big issue right now that's happening is that we're too busy fighting and dividing over cultural issues, when right now, man, we got to realize, the rest of the world, they don't have these issues.
Right.
They don't have these issues. Like let's praise God. Like we live in a country that if you want to go ahead and be a woman and go drag, hey, listen, I'm not for that, but you live in a country that can. Some of these countries mentioned earlier, Russia, you think you can do that in Russia? You think you can do that in China? You think you can go ahead and do that in Saudi Arabia? No. But here's the thing. Like if we're not careful, they start becoming the superpower.
Yeah.
And if you're going to want to start having jobs, you're going to have to bow down to them.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's a super hot take. And that's like, if we continue going down the path that we go on and BRICS gets the power that it desires and it wants to take us out,
right? Then
what's the option? What are we going to fall back on?
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you right now, like when me and Sly first started this, I was kind of like, all right, dude, like you're going to take the reins because I don't really know where we're going, but I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute.
Go ahead. Get on it. Get on that thing.
This kind of fires me up a little bit. The more we're talking about this, guys, stop attaching people with politics.
Yeah.
It's super frustrating to me because as soon as you start talking about being Republican, liberal, left, whatever you want to call it, people start like putting you in this group as, oh, well, you're a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're a Biden. That's not what it means. And if anything that people can say that, like, the push for the podcast and being, there being more freelance guys and there's being more perspective out there in these guys, is that at least they're trying to show that you can blend like beliefs, because that to me is that's what America is.
Yeah.
It is an accumulation of different backgrounds, cultures, religions, and it's saying that we can all live together because we can all take a little bit of something from everybody because we are not perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem now, is you have these people saying, I want to say and stand for a choice, whatever that choice is. But at the same time, those people are also saying, but I want to make sure that it's my choice.
Yeah.
That's the choice that I want you to take. And that's not what America's founded on.
No. And I think another issue that I also have is like we enjoy American freedom.
Yeah.
But we're starting to have issues with America.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's wrong, man. Like, listen, call me a brown nationalist. I don't care what you want to call me, man, bro. I love this country.
Yeah.
And if that calls me a brown nationalist, okay, go call me that. Tell you this much, I ain't racist.
Yeah.
I think some of these people that are so quick to call other people white nationalists, things like that, ain't got no black friends, ain't got no friends that look like me, ain't got no Indian friends, ain't got no friends that look of any different color. They're just doing for virtue signaling, right? So they can sound special. They say they can sound great. But there's literally, man, we live in the best freaking country. And what's wrong in saying that?
You know what's unbelievable too? And this is something, again, that this is just stirring up some of the stuff that I just haven't thought about in a while.
Yeah.
Look at the Olympics, bro. Like, do you remember like Jesse Owens, like, winning the track?
Dream team, baby.
The dream team. Like the pride of America, like being the pinnacle of athleticism in winning these winning all of these events in gold medals, and it being such a pride thing, and wrapping themselves in the American flag, and now we have people burning it.
And that's sad, bro.
It's sad.
It's sad. Now, I will say the only thing I'm not for is the WBC because Jose Altuve is not out and the Stros are sucking. But other than that,
I knew that soapbox was coming out. I was
other
waiting.
than that, I am totally for, man, American exceptionalism, man. Dude, like you go anywhere,
Did
bro.
you hear the stat on Japan on the WBC? They said that 78% of households in Japan
That's wild.
tuned into that.
Every other country, bro, has great pride.
Pride.
Every single country has great pride in their country. We're the only country now that it's bad to say, I like my country.
And do you remember when it was at its peak? Do you remember like
9/11.
But prior to that, I'm going to go take you a little farther
Okay.
back. Soviet Union.
Oh, yeah.
The big America versus Soviet
Yeah.
Union. And why was that? It's almost like we need, again, 9/11, we need an evil as Americans almost
Like I
to
said,
fight against.
We got British and China.
Yeah.
The BRICS, sorry, not British. We got wow, Brazil, Russia, things more Russia and China, right?
Right.
Again, you say something like that, that's racist. It's
Right.
it's not that at all, right? It's that you have these political parties within these governments that are not thinking short term.
Right.
They're not thinking whether, these little kind of cultural issues can happen. They're thinking long term.
Right.
We're going to take out the United States and we're going to be the number one country in the
And
world.
they're allowing
They're
us to
thinking
turn it.
that. They're
Yeah.
thinking that way. Now, here's what I will say. I think we have made a big mistake, right, in continually pushing higher education as the primary way, right, of succeeding and excelling. And in doing that, we have a lot of individuals that go to these countries, right, or these countries have sent individuals over here to us,
Right.
and began to kind of brainwash a lot of our students in really bad ideology,
Right.
that's kind of pushes in that direction. And this is coming from, again, you hear that from people who didn't
Right.
finish college education and things like that. This is coming from a person who actually got his college education. I was the first in my family to get a college education. But I will say
Golf
this,
claps.
right? Here's the thing, though. Like, the big issue is that we have college education now indoctrinating so many young people, right, to one, hate our country
Yeah.
and kind of go into that. And I'm telling you, that's strategically planned. Like, we're still playing checkers. They're playing chess.
Yeah.
They're making moves. They invested when we were talking about, like, way back when, the dates that you were talking about,
Yeah.
the Great Depression. They made moves back then to get them ahead where they're at now.
Yeah.
We are playing from behind.
Look at the semiconductors, China, like the insane amount of semiconductor plants and manufacturing facilities that China built
Yep.
years ago,
Yep.
right?
Knowing that this day would come.
Knowing
that we
this day
say,
would come.
We're going to pull.
Gonna pull
We're
and
gonna
put
pull.
us in. I mean, again, you're talking about playing chess, and while we're playing checkers, talk about long game financially collapsing while those guys are sitting over there just going any day now.
And then here's the sad reality, man. They have, like, Disney, like this.
Yeah.
By the you-know-whats.
Yeah.
They have them like this, and they're afraid of them. Instead of saying, you know what? You need to be afraid of us.
Right.
You have, your studios are over here with us.
Right.
Your movies are recorded in what language? Again, the people can call me racist. Yo, I'm bilingual when I'm working on my third language, right? Like, you can say whatever you want. I ain't that.
Right.
The reality is we are falling behind. But here's the good thing, man. Like, again, these colors don't run, baby. Like, we're Tom Brady. We're down to the Atlanta Falcons. There's still an opportunity to come back.
Absolutely.
And I think this is time where we start realizing, I think, your vote is something the way you do that, but I think it's more than that. I think it's going over to that individual who may not agree with you politically and maybe start talking about
conversation.
Talking about things like BRICS. Like you said, you had some friends, you started talking about foreign policy, and they're like, yeah, you know what? Let me just kind of rethink about that. Right? I think that's so important, man. Like how we're viewed as a country. Again, and you're talking about all these cultures. I'm telling you, these other countries don't have these issues.
No, they
and
don't.
If you're not careful, if we're not careful, if these things that what you're passionate about, all these other things that you're fighting for, I'm telling you now, if we're not careful, these other countries will take over. We will fall. And the day tomorrow, when country's broke and you're looking for a job, or somebody who believes you and what you believe in is looking for a job, they're going to have to bow down to China, Russia, or whatever, and they're not going to be able to do what you consider as freedom.
I mean, other countries don't have the luxury of even having these thoughts that we're having here in modern day
Absolutely.
America. They
Absolutely
don't.
Not. Absolutely not.
Some of this stuff, I mean, like, we keep kind of bringing this up a little bit, but like, look at Andrew Tate and the situation that happened with him getting arrested and like not like what was it? The girl like falsified her testimony and like they had evidence, but just the way that system works over there, they like she openly admitted that like she colluded and lied.
Wow.
And again, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the story that I read.
Yeah.
And he was still in jail for like 30 days after.
Yeah.
And just now got released. Like, is that it? I mean, I know we have our own issues in our own justice system. Like, don't get me sideways on that either. Yeah. But like that kind of stuff like there, like that I would go far to say that that's not a commonality in every situation in our justice system. Now, cats getting thrown in there for way too long for certain misdemeanors and stuff, and like I ain't gonna open that can of worms, but I got my own feelings on that.
It's funny because like I was talking with some cats earlier today about El Salvador. My dad's from El Salvador, and we're talking about how they are locking up people, and they're completely different. They're locking up gang members, for example. And some people are saying, oh, this is a cry versus, humanity. And again, this is a different issue, and I stand in a different way with this, but I'm just bringing this up for this example. They are right now guilty until proven innocent.
I read something about that.
They're guilty until proven innocent. And the president came out and said we're guilty. So we're talking about, again, guys, you think all these other countries operate like us. If you completely disagree with this, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't think the way we're doing. They're not operating the way they're doing. They're thinking about what can we do to make our country last for the next 10 to 15 years. I think it's time for us to kind of reshift and say, yo, America is great. We have a lot of good values. People have freedoms, right? What can we do to change our mindset and our mentality to last another 10, 15, 20, 30 years?
I agree.
So
closing comments, guys, it's important to vote.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter. We're not here to say who you need to be voting for, but it is important to vote. It is your right as an American. And
don't focus only on, again, people are like, well, that's going to be hypocritical coming from a Christian. But I'm also saying that you can't only vote on one issue. Like, you got to look at everything else.
It's true.
Examine everything else. And I know you're going to say, oh, this is hypocritical from a Christian, from a pastor. And I get that. But at the same time, there's also all these other things that you got to consider when you're going to that ballot box.
Yeah, because Christians are broken too. And they make mistakes.
So
guys, appreciate y'all. Thank you for listening. Just want to, again, remind y'all, April 27th, 6:30, NFL live draft.
We got a lot of cool things, introducing a lot of good stuff. If you heard the podcast this week, we're introducing a brand new channel. You're going to see a lot of that, visuals and things like that. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
You want to be there.
So go listen to the episode so you can know what the name of it is.
There we go. And hopefully we're not canceled by then.
Hopefully not. All right, guys. See ya.